some way. And I get so many questions about things like this that I thought I should make an entire video dedicated to it. And it is going to be about relationships, the good, the bad, the ugly, toxic ones, healthy ones, red flags, things to look for, things like that. I'm not going to get into super sensitive topics because, I just don't want to go there. This being an ASMR video, I'm going to keep it light, but we are going to touch on some things. So, I'm going to be real, and we are just going to talk a little bit about some relationships I've gone through, and just a couple things to look out for, and things like that. Now, I'm going to do a part 2 to this video, where I open up the discussion and have you guys leave comments about relationships you've had, maybe some things that other people should look out for. If you have any relationship advice, if you have any advice to give, if you have any questions, things like that, and we'll just kind of have an open forum. I'll read your comments / questions, give commentary, things like that. But tonight is going to be solely focused on my experiences with relationships and different things you can kind of look out for, good things, bad things, all of the above, based off my experiences. So if that's something you're interested in, please stay tuned. Please also subscribe, hit the red button that says subscribe, and hit the like button if you want part 2. If I don't get a lot of likes on the video, I'll take it as you do not want me to make another one. So if you do, please take a moment, hit the like button right now. Thank you. Okay, let's get into it. And please do remember that if you want more in-depth, personal story times about relationships I've had, more, detail and things like that about my life and personal stuff that I really won't share on YouTube, those kind of videos can be found on my Patreon. That's linked in the description box. But for tonight, like I said, we're going to keep it light and not go into too much detail. So, to start, I want to kind of talk about relationships in general and a little bit about mine. So my first was the typical, like picket fence relationship that your parents would want you to be in, right? Like everything looked perfect on paper. But there were some red flags, and when I was in the relationship, I really didn't think that it was necessarily bad. So I thought it was almost flattering because, for instance, we were young, so we couldn't be with each other 24/7. So we went to the same school for like the first half of high school, and then he moved and he went to a different high school. But nevertheless, we would, go home after school or whatever and hang out, and then he'd have to drop me off. Like I had a 10 o'clock curfew, so on school nights I'd have to be home by 10 p.m. And he was a little bit insecure because, majority of my life was surrounded by him. We spent every waking hour that we were allowed to be together. So I kind of, I had a big friend group at the time, and he did as well, but it was never like him hanging out with my friends. Rarely, maybe 10% of the time. Most of the time, it was me being with him and his friends. So I wasn't really having like my own life outside of my relationship, which isn't good. My entire life was revolved around him and his life, and he liked it that way. And when I would, say like, okay, I want to go hang out with my friends, like, so-and-so is having a party, I'd like to go, and you're welcome to come. And he'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. Which, my high school friends, he was friends with some of them, but like, as I got older, I started making different friends that he necessarily wasn't friends with, and wasn't open to trying to be friends with them. Was very shut off, very like, no, won't even give it a chance, just very set in his ways, very closed off, like, and he's still, 5, 7, 8 years ago he was like that, and he still is, like, from what I've heard, everything's very much the same. So, like I said, he wasn't open to liking out with me and my friends. It was very much him and his friends all the time. And, for the most part, I was okay with that. I didn't really see a problem in it until my friends started to point it out. Like, how come you can never hang out? We miss you. We want to do this and that with you, and you're always with, we'll call him Kyle. That's not his real name, but that's what we'll call him. And I'm like, he's my boyfriend. And they're like, yeah, but we have boyfriends and we still get to hang out with our friends, And it started to kind of hit me that this was happening. And when we would go home at the end of the night, on like school nights, on weekends, I'd sleep over his house every single weekend. Like, period. Like, I did nothing else. It was always with him. And on school nights when we weren't allowed to have sleepovers, we would fall asleep together on the phone. He would call me as soon as, like, before he even got home, as soon as he dropped me off. And we'd stay on the phone till I fell asleep. And he just wanted to make sure, like, I wasn't leaving and going anywhere and kind of keeping tabs on me. And, I don't know. I felt almost, like I said, flattered by it when I was young. Like, oh, he loves me, but he was insecure, and that was very smothering. I just felt very smothered. And inevitably, that is what turned me off to the relationship. I got to a point where I wanted to have my freedom just a little bit, be able to hang out with my friends, his friends and his family, and he didn't like that. And every time I would ask to do something like that, it would become a fight. And I got to a point where it was too much. I had a car, and I literally never drove it because he drove me everywhere. And finally, it just, I was bringing it to his attention, and nothing would change. And inevitably, it made me fall out of love with him, and I ended up, breaking it off. And I felt awful because he was very much in love with me, and I was with him at one time as well, but nothing was changing, and I needed to be my own person, because if you put 1,000% into this person, right, and your entire life is surrounded by him and only him, when you don't have him, what do you have left? You need to have other things besides that person, because they're not guaranteed forever. You don't know what's going to happen. People change in life, things happen, and you need to have a life outside of your relationship. So that's tip number 1. That is so huge. Be your own person, have your own friends, and if he doesn't allow you to do that, nip it in the bud. That's a bad sign, and you don't want to continue a relationship with somebody like that. So I ended up leaving him and giving the engagement ring back, and just telling him I needed a break because I was scared to be like, it's over, but I knew it deep down in my heart. I knew it was done. And I wasn't 100% fond of his family either, which is another really big thing. You don't have to love everybody in their family, but to be able to feel comfortable around those people and feel a connection is very important. They were just so different from me and my family, and different is okay, right? But I don't know, it didn't feel right. Women, we have that gut instinct, and you need to go with that. You know yourself, you know what you feel deep down in your gut, and it just didn't feel right. So there's that. That's kind of what I took away from that relationship. Okay, so there's that. Then, towards the end of mine and his relationship, I was making new friends, like I said, and one of them was the guy that I dated next. And he was the total opposite of my first boyfriend. He was very outgoing, very funny, very talkative, very the main person in the room, like the main character. He knew everybody knew him. He was just very loud, a huge personality. Like, anybody who knows this person's would say the same thing. And I was just head over heels for this person. He, like my first relationship, he loved me to death, like I know he did, but he wasn't super mushy. Like, he didn't show a ton of affection in public, not a lot of PDA, stuff like that, where this guy, he would scream from the rooftop that I was the most beautiful girl in the entire world, and how much he loved me, and dance with me in front of anybody, and sing to me, serenade me, like total opposite of my first boyfriend. And I think that's what attracted me to him, and because I was so infatuated with that, I had a blinder on to all the bad things, and there were signs, but I ignored them. And he was very, very manipulative and very good. The show Catfish. I feel like my whole entire relationship with him was a catfish. was tricked into thinking he was this amazing person. And he was not. He was not. A very toxic person. And I spoke more about him on my Patreon in detail. Stuff that I will not get into in this video because I want to keep it light. But I went through a lot with that person, a lot of damaging things. And even though I did, at the point, it didn't start happening right away. I was with him for about a year and a half before really bad things started happening. And at that point, I was head over heels in love with this man. A love that I never felt. And because I loved him so much, I didn't want to lose him. It was just like toxic. It was so toxic. I knew that I didn't want to be in a relationship like that, but I also knew that I didn't want to lose him. It was just very bad situation, and it's very hard to let go of. We were very codependent, and I just not only did I not want to let go, I was scared too. Towards the end, I was very scared of leaving that relationship and what that would look like and what would come of trying to leave and get out of that relationship. And I would just, my main takeaway from him is, I know it's very easy to love the idea of somebody being so infatuated with you and showing you so much love that you kind of look over little red flags that you might see. He was very flirtatious, and like with his cell phone and stuff, like he was very secretive about certain things and wouldn't just leave his phone out everywhere. Like, I could tell there were like cheater signs. And he was very like off the handle, like, was fighting all the time and had a bad temper and toxic. Rachel almost found that attractive when I was younger. I remember once we were at this party and he was flirting with a girl that I always felt like he was flirting with. Like every time he was around her, they were both very flirtatious and it was so obvious. And like I would tell my best friend, like, I'm not seeing things, like I know this is happening. And she would be like, maybe you're like reading into it too much. He loves you. He could have been with her. He knew her before you. Like, if he wanted to date her, he could have dated her prior. And I just had that instinct. I just knew. And he did end up cheating on me with her. I found out after we broke up. So my intuitions were correct. But I remember being at this party with him, and she was there, and it was one of my friend's house parties. We used to have these like humongous blowout house parties, and he was in the house like flirting with her, and I had a fit, and I like stormed out and went to go in my car to leave, and I tried to make him jealous and let another guy drive my car with me in it, and it was one of his friends, and he lost his mind, came outside and like took my car and whipped it across, like took my car, took my purse, because I left it in the house for some reason, took my purse and whipped it against my car door so hard that he left a dent, and everybody was outside, and like took his drink and threw it on me in front of everybody, and that's just kind of how he was, like very off the handle. pocket on vibrate. You know what is right and what is wrong, and you have to use your best judgment, because once you're too far into the relationship, then it's that much harder to turn away and leave. So kind of look for those things early on, and a lot of times, like in my situation, men will trick you into thinking there's somebody that they're not, and you don't fully know somebody for like 3 years, and especially after you live with somebody, it's totally different than when you're dating them and living separate. Then when you live together, you really get to know somebody when you move in with them. So just keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, keep your mind open. Don't close off to the bad things that you're seeing because you love that person. Be aware. Talk to your friends. Voice your concerns. And hopefully you have supportive friends that will help you see the things that you don't want to necessarily see because you love that person. But inevitably, finally, I got out of that situation, and me and my current boyfriend and father of my child, we were friends while I was dating this other bad, I call him the bad ex, and he was friends with my bad ex as well, and we were like best friends at this time. And then we ended up falling in love, and I knew we were very compatible when I was dating this jerk, and everybody used to tell us that too, like we just looked like the perfect picture couple. We had so much in common, like that it was freaky. It was honestly scary how much we had in common, and we would notice it, and I could just tell, like, he felt what I was feeling, like, this is weird. It just felt, how they say, like, you have a person. It just felt like he was my person. But inevitably, I got out of that terrible relationship, and Chris really helped me to do so. And we ended up falling in love, and, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that our relationship has been perfect, because we've had some bumps in the road. I just talked about my birth story of me having my son over on Patreon, and I talked a little bit about mine and Chris's little breakup that we had, and the timeline of that and all of it, kind of what happened and why. So if you're interested in that, check out the Patreon link below. But I said all that to say that mine and his relationship has not been perfect the entire time. We've definitely both had and done wrongs in different ways, but for the most part, it has been pretty amazing. He's an amazing dad, and he has only gotten angry once, like angry. And he wasn't necessarily himself at that time, and I won't go into details, but he treats me with respect. He would never throw a drink on me in front of people, ever. Like, ever. He treats me with respect. There's trust. There's more friendship than romance, which for me is very important. I mean, there has to be romance too, right? But the core of our relationship is friendship. We respect one another. We love one another. And no sense of that. He just is always in my way, and it makes me crazy. And he'll like pop tags off new clothes and leave the tags everywhere, like just stupid little things, but they're exactly that, stupid little things. And I'm so grateful for that I cannot sit here and tell you any major red flags, you know, but, you know, he has done some things in his past with our relationship, like liking females' photos on Facebook, and, you know, things that had to be addressed and nipped in the bud, but we are very open, and we speak about things that are bothering each other, and we nip it in the bud before it gets to a place where we're like holding on to it, and then it turns and manifests into something much bigger. And then, you know, you have these blowout fights. So that's another tip I would give. If something's bothering you with your partner, talk about it like right away. You know, if it's hard to talk to them, write them a letter, send them a text. The light just turned off. But yeah, me and Chris do better with like writing things down sometimes than like talking about them if it's really hard to talk about. Sometimes we'll write each other a letter and just leave it for the other person in the morning. Or like I'll take a drive and just write him a text, so that, you know, we're not arguing about it because we can't, you know, I'm not in the house, whatever the fact may be. But I hope that you guys got some tips. My biggest thing is trust your instinct. Don't turn a blind eye to red flags because you love somebody or because you're infatuated. You know, I think sometimes, you know, we want relationships so bad. We want that companionship. We want that connection. We want that security that we look past things we normally wouldn't,